Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Katie Weaver Show. This is Katie. I'm your host. I'm sure glad to be here. If you are listening live, it is Christmas Eve, the 24th of December at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we are live. If you are listening to an archive or a replay, I want to also welcome you to the show. It's going to be a fun one. I want to let you know we're over in the chat room. You can find us by heading over to 12radio.com. That's number 2 radio.com. Click on the chat button and you'll be redirected into the Facebook chat. You do need to ask for entry if you've never joined before, but we'd sure love to see you here. And Scott is standing by and he would love to let you into the chat room. I am also live streaming this event from the chat, so you can find it if you head over there. If you'd like to watch it later on, you can do that by heading over to Domestic Mystic on YouTube. So there's all the deets. I just want to have a fun, laid-back show. Here we are. It is finally, officially, Christmas Eve. Are you ready? I mean, you kind of have to be. If you're not, well, oh well. If you celebrate Christmas, I know some of you probably don't, and that's okay too. But if you do, well, anyway, time's basically up. I actually have just sent my kids to Walmart for one last time, because Mars just realized she doesn't have a present for her brother. I just realized that I committed us to bring Pico to our Christmas Eve party tonight, and I forgot. So, all this stuff. So, like any good mom, I'm letting my teenagers go face Walmart instead of me. Other than that, I think we're ready and good to go. If we're not, oh well, we better not need it now. All right. Well, I have a few things I want to do today. The first thing I want to tell you is that I have a special reading, a holiday special over on 1-2-Listen. My 20-minute time-based session, pardon me, is on sale for the next week for a really special price. I'm loving it. So this is a 20-minute time-based session for $89, which is crazy low. So I believe I will be able to, I'll be able to run that from now until the end of the year. So if you need to talk to me, this is a really good way to do it because that's a very reduced rate. And I would love to talk to you if you guys need any support, energy work, balancing, mediumship, animal communication, all the stuff. Come and talk to me and let's work on it together. I would love to answer your questions in the chat room. I think we'll have some time today for some readings. So if you would like a reading, be sure and put it in the chat, not in the live stream chat, but just under my banner at the top of the page in the chat room. When you put stuff in the live stream, I see it usually for a second and then it's gone. And so I don't want to miss important things. So that's what we're going to do. A few things. I'm going to actually read to you guys today. I'm going to read you 2 of my favorite Christmas books. I thought that would be something that would just be a fun, easy, laid-back way to just celebrate Christmas. Kevin says, Happy Festivus. Yes, it is a Festivus for the rest of us. Shall we start the airing of grievances or feats of strength? I love it. We'll probably actually do that with my family tonight. We do things like that. I don't know. I feel like the airing of grievances just is constantly going on. Feats of strength, I'd probably lose. But you never know. Dare to dream, right? Sure. Well, first, I want to draw your attention to Luminous Magazine. Of course, this is I've got the wrong copy to share. Hold on. This is the magazine that I publish every single week with my contributors from right here at 1-2-Listen, or people in the 1-2 family at least. And it's something that is obviously near and dear to my heart. I have so many amazing people I work with. I think you guys know that. So many gifted people with so much to share, and they share freely. And I'm so honored and humbled constantly to work alongside of them. So I do want to share Luminous. I am really going to have to get the link pulled up because I saved the wrong thing. I might have Christmas brain. It's hard to say. This is my regular brain, let's be real. All right. I've got it. I found it. All right. I'm going to throw it in the chat room, but you can also find it by heading over to 12radio.com. Sorry, over to katie-weaver.com and click on the Luminous Magazine button, and you can read it right there on my website as well. So pretty easy to find, but here's a link for you if you want to follow along with me. I've had a lot of fun with covers this month and art, all of the lights. I just love all the lights. That's probably one of my favorite things about the holidays is the lights. I did call this episode edition, the Mary Ann Bright edition. My note, I was thinking about, Christmas always brings you to think about family traditions and sentimental stuff. And I was thinking about a time when my mom did something so funny that just, she didn't do funny things, like not on purpose usually. Our dad was really funny, but she was a little more reserved, and she wasn't usually funny on purpose, but sometimes she was funny on accident in a way that would kill you. And one time, she loved Christmas caroling. So every year we would bake up these giant plates of treats and we'd walk all over our neighborhood and Christmas carol to everybody and, sing all the Christmas songs that she had taught us. And it was really fun. One year we were caroling and we had just finished singing to this older lady. And as we were walking away, we were all yelling, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And out of nowhere, my mom in the back of the group yells loud and clear, Happy birthday! No, Merry Christmas. And it was just hilarious, mostly from her because she just didn't do goofy things, right? And so we laughed and we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. My dad laughed so hard that he had tears running down his cheeks. And he teased her about it for years. Every year when we would go to trick or treat, every year when we would go to Christmas Carol, he would remind her, now, remember, don't say happy birthday. Anyway, I still laugh about it when I think about it because it was so funny. We laughed so hard, we had a hard time finishing our caroling that year. But I was also thinking about Christmas songs. I was singing to the kids when we delivered our our Secret Santa a couple of nights ago. I was singing some Christmas carols in the car, thinking about how my mom always did that. We didn't have phones and Bluetooth and, all the fancy stuff. And she would sing songs in the car, especially around Christmas, all the Christmas carols. And she loved the song Up on the Housetop. You guys familiar with it? Up on the housetop, reindeer paws. By the way, it's paws, as in Pause. I always thought it was paws, like paws. And I was always confused about that because aren't they hooves? Anyway, no. Reindeer, paws. They take a pause. I learned that today. Up on the housetop, reindeer paws. Out jumps good old Santa Claus. Down through the chimney with lots of toys, all for the little ones' Christmas joys. Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, 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 down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. First comes the stocking of little Nell. Oh, dear Santa, fill it well. Give her a dolly that laughs and cries, one that will open and shut her eyes. Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, 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 down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. Next comes the stocking of little Will. Oh, just see what a glorious fill. Here is a hammer and lots of tacks, also a ball and a whip that cracks. Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, 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 down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. She loved that song. I loved that song. When I was a kid, she would make up verses for everyone in the family, including things that they might have wanted or needed for Christmas, and including the dogs, based on whether they'd been good or not and what Santa might bring them. And it was always funny. And I still do it. You can imagine. I'm always talking about singing to my dogs and the pigs. Anyway, that just brought up a fun memory for me this morning. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, Sid said she thought they were always scratching at the roof. Me too. No, they are pausing so that St. Nick can get out of the sled. Who knew? None of us, apparently. Okay, so many good articles this week in Luminous. I wanted to share my winter solstice tip. The winter solstice for me is always about learning and reading and pausing and reflecting. And so I always have a challenge for me, and I always throw it out there for you guys too, a reading challenge. So over the winter solstice, select 3 books, 1 novel for fun, 1 autobiography of someone that you think is interesting for inspiration, and 1 educational book to feed your brain. So I'm really torn on my novel. Christopher Paolini has a brand new book out. I don't know if you guys know Christopher Paolini. Christopher Paolini is the author of the Eldest series, the Aragon books. If you're familiar with them, I absolutely devoured those books once upon a time. In fact, I've read the whole series twice. And it was so funny because I have a nephew who loves that series as well and loves Christopher Paolini. And in fact, last year for Christmas, my sister managed to get him a signed copy of Eldest. And it was extremely exciting to him. And so just a few days ago, I said to him, I am sick and tired of Christopher Paolini not putting out new books. And so lo and behold, we did Christmas with those kids on Sunday because they'll be with their mom tomorrow. And what did he get for Christmas? A new Christopher Paolini. There is a new one out. I'm so excited. So that's probably going to be my novel. But I have to tell you that yesterday on this show, no, on the 1-2 News, sorry, my guest was Julie Aronson, and Julie shared with us a book that looks absolutely amazing. But it's what she's reading right now, or actually just wrapped up. So now I'm torn because, oh my God, it looked really good. So I'm going to share that one with you as well. It's called the Goddess Codex, and it looks amazing. I found it on Amazon yesterday during the show, so you can pick it up there. It looked so good. So you may consider picking that one up. It came with very high reviews from Julie, who I would absolutely trust when it comes to books and reading. So anyway, I'm always curious to know what you guys are reading or what you recommend. I don't have an autobiography in mind as of yet, so I need to work on that. And I've been thinking about what do I want to learn over the winter solstice. Thinking about some ancient stuff like ancient Avalon, that kind of slant. Now, where would an autobiography come into play in that? I don't know yet, but it'll come, right? Or maybe I'll break my own mold and I won't do it exactly that way this year. But anyway, I always like to ask what you guys are reading because you guys are some very literary people that always have great suggestions. So do share. I would love to know. All right. Well, I will let you go ahead and comb through Luminous and read the rest of it when you have a moment. I hope it brings you some peace, some joy, and maybe some information that your heart was asking for. So that's all I have on Luminous today. Okay. Just taking a quick peek into the chat room here. I did share a video in the chat room at the very top. It's a video I made of the pigs this morning, sleeping in a little blanket fort. And so you want to go watch that at some point. I was warning them. NORAD says that Santa is on his way. And as I was reading that, they were having a little hassle on the couch about who got to sleep where. So I thought I might warn them. Santa's on his way. So, now's the time. You're out of time. Yikes. Anyway, they've been good little piggies. I know Santa will bring them something nice. And not coal, because they'd make a mess with that. Not happening. Okay. Well, a couple of things I wanted to do today. I want to drum for you. because I know that plenty of us have been feeling maybe a little overdone, maybe a little worn out, maybe a little, I don't know, in need. So that's the first thing I'd like to do is just drum for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drum. And while I do that, I just want you to hold the intention of allowing the frequency of the drum, the vibration of the drum, to permeate your spirit, completely removing anything that you are no longer needing. This is a good way for you to be able to just get yourself cleared, balanced, and centered for the year. For the year. I don't know, for the year, at least for the season, right? You might have a lot going on. You might be frazzled as hell today. I hope you're not. I hope you're not, but you might be, and there's no shame in it. So, Rebecca said her grandma liked the Michelle Obama bio. My sisters loved it. That's a really good suggestion. Yes. Okay. Mary said, my good spiritual friend recommended Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. Sounds fascinating. Ooh, that sounds super fascinating. Yeah. Thanks, you guys. Okay. Relax. All you have to do is close your eyes and relax. A quick word about drumming. Drumming is something that will sometimes release something in you, but before it does, sometimes it creates a fight or flight instinct. So if you feel like you're going to have to dash out of the room or shut this off immediately, do it if you must, but try to stick with me and breathe through it. It's a normal instinct, but if you can breathe through it and just continue to allow the frequency of the drum to do its magic on you, you may benefit. So let's see where we go from here. Okay. Trying to get my mallet in my hand the way I want it. Here we go. Okay. Oh, I'm thinking I'm the guy that needed that, but I'm guessing some of you probably did too. Whew, that resonated really, really well. Yes. Oh, good point. Renee says, what about Melissa Caprio's new book? And I did just receive it. I've been looking through it. Let's see. Believe it or not, I have to respond to a request really fast for a little Secret Santa help. Looks like our family just picked up one more Secret Santa kid that we're going to do last minute. I'm all in. Okay. Anyway, that's how this stuff goes, right? All right. I have two books I want to share with you. You really might want to be in the live stream I'm going to share. So, but if you're not, it's okay too. All right. So these are both books that I got for Christmas at one point or another from my mom. She always gave us children's books, among others. She'd get a pile of books from her for Christmas, but always a children's book about Christmas that she loved. So this was a book that was given to our family in 2003, and it is called Christmas Oranges, retold by Linda Beathers, illustrated by Ben Sowards. Okay. In a town not so far away, and in a time not so long ago, there lived a little girl. Her name might have been Eve, or Mary, or Sarah, but no one knew for certain. For this little girl had been left on the steps of an orphanage a few years earlier. A note had been pinned to her nightshirt saying, "Please take care of this baby. She is a good baby." No clue was given as to her name. The lady in charge of the orphanage, Mrs. Hartley, began calling the baby Rose because of her rosy cheeks, and Rose she had been ever since. Rose's early years were spent at the Greenwoods orphanage. She was loved and well taken care of by Mrs. Hartley, and because she could remember no other home, she was happy. She used to tell herself that she had 30 brothers and sisters, for she loved all of the children at the orphanage. Sometimes they had disagreements and arguments, but as brothers and sisters do, they still cared for each other. One wintry November, when Rose was 8 years old, a terrible flu epidemic swept through the country. People old and young became ill. People old and people young died. The orphanage was no exception. Many of the children became very ill, and some of the children died. Mrs. Hartley, with her kind and loving heart, cared for the sick children as if they were her own. She bathed their fevered faces with cool water. She coaxed them to sip broth. She held them close and rocked them through the night. But after many days and nights of this, Mrs. Hartley, too, caught the terrible flu and slipped quietly from this life. With her death came the closing of Greenwood's orphanage. Mrs. Hartley had no children to carry on her work, and the townspeople felt they were too poor to take on the added burden of the orphanage. It was decided that the children would be sent to other institutions throughout the country. And so, a few days later, Rose found herself on a train, traveling through the night to a new town and a new home at another orphanage. As Rose timidly stepped through the doors of Iron Gates Orphanage, she could not help feeling scared and disappointed. Her new home was nothing like the one she was used to. Instead of warm, soft blankets on the beds, there were scratchy gray ones. Instead of hand-stitched rugs in the halls, there were bare floors. Instead of kind, loving Mrs. Hartley to care for the children, there was stern, strict Mr. Crampton to run the orphanage. Instead of 30 familiar friends smiling at her, there were 30 strangers staring at her. "Silence," Mr. Crampton ordered before marching forward to give Rose a disapproving, inspecting look. Turning to the other children, he said, "This is Rose. See that she understands the rules of Iron Gates Orphanage. Emily, take her to the sleeping rooms and then show her the chores she will be expected to do. The rest of you, go back to your duties." A young girl about Rose's age beckoned for Rose to follow her. They walked silently to the end of the hall and just as quietly climbed the stairs. Once they had started down the hall, and could no longer be seen from the entry, Emily leaned over to whisper quietly to Rose, "I'm glad you're here. I'm 10. How old are you?" Rose had been so frightened by Mr. Crampton's order for silence, when it seemed to her the children were already silent, that she dared not speak. She kept her eyes lowered and did not reply. Emily took her hand and patted it and whispered, "It's all right to whisper up here. Mr. Crampton can't hear us. It's only when we're downstairs or when he's around that we have to hold still and be still. That's the #1 rule. Hold still and be still. Up here we can talk and be friends." Even though Rose still dared not speak, she smiled a tiny, shy smile at Emily. Over the next few weeks, Rose learned the rules and ways of Iron Gates Orphanage. Some of the other children whispering them to her, and some after she had broken a rule. Breaking a rule was the hardest way to learn, for Mr. Crampton believed that once a rule was broken, there must be a punishment. explaining to him that a new child didn't know a rule did no good. He said that if he let one person off for that excuse, others would try to use it too. Every rule broken must be met with a punishment. Mr. Crampton's three favorite punishments were sentencing a child to miss a meal, do extra chores, or spend the evening alone. Rose soon learned or guessed most of the rules and was able to avoid most punishment. November's white bleak snows soon became beautiful accents to December's Christmas greens and reds. Everywhere the Iron Gates children walked, they saw signs that Christmas would soon come. They would stand out in the cold evening air and watch through lighted windows as happy, smiling families decorated trees or gathered around pianos for singing or baked wonderful Christmas treats in warm, lighted kitchens. One of these evenings, as Rose and Emily stood watching a lovely little girl twirling around her parlor in her pretty new flannel nightgown, Emily explained to Rose about Christmas at Iron Gates. She told how Mr. Crampton always said he would like to forget Christmas altogether, but the townspeople wouldn't let him. To keep them happy and to keep up appearances, he allowed a tree to be put up on Christmas Eve after the children had gone to bed. He didn't want it up any earlier because he said it excited the children and made them noisy and unmanageable. One generous older man in town always donated a box of oranges to the orphanage for the children's Christmas breakfast. To avoid buying shiny glass balls or other ornaments, Mr. Crampton had the oranges strung with loops and placed on the tree. Emily told Rose how beautiful the dark orange color looked against the pine boughs, and how wonderful the citrus and pine fragrance was that filled the entry. Rose had never seen or smelled an orange before. At Greenwood's orphanage, there hadn't been extra money for such an expensive treat. The Christmas morning surprise, there had been a small spoonful of sugar on top of the porridge. The children always debated whether it was best to stir the sugar in and try to sweeten the whole bowl full, or leave it in a little pile in the middle of the porridge and eat it in one delicious bite. Emily tried to explain to Rose about oranges. She said they were sweeter than sugar in a clean, fresh way. She had thought about it a lot, and she was sure that angels ate oranges in heaven. Rose listened to all of this with wide-eyed wonder. She didn't know how she could possibly wait 3 more days until Christmas morning. On Christmas Eve, as the children lay in their beds, they whispered excitedly about how beautiful the tree would look and how grand it would be to have a touch of Christmas in the orphanage, even if it was only for one day. It was good that Mr. Crampton's room was downstairs, for he would surely have been angry with all of the whispering and wiggling in the bedrooms that night. Rose lay in her bed and tried to go to sleep. She held perfectly still. She closed her eyes. She thought of the words to the lullabies that Mrs. Hartley had sung each night. She tried breathing in and out very slowly, but no matter how hard she tried, she kept thinking about the oranges that would be on the tree, the oranges that she would finally get to taste the next morning. As the night slowly crept by, Rose tried to guess what time it was. When she could stand it no longer, she slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the door. She looked back, but the other children were still asleep. She opened the door carefully, so as not to disturb the others, and softly, silently padded down the hall to the banister railing. Kneeling down, she gazed in wonder at the beautiful tree with the prized oranges and shimmering candles on it. Rose knelt there for only a moment, and then just as silently walked back to bed. She lay down and was at last able to sleep. Now what Rose hadn't seen was that Mr. Crampton was awake and standing in the doorway to his room. He had watched Rose walk to the rail, kneel down, and then return to her room. He had almost called her back to give her a lecture then and pronounce a punishment. At the last minute, he decided to wait until morning, when he could use Rose as an example to teach all of the children a lesson in obedience. The sun had barely begun to outline the housetops when the children were awake, dressed, and waiting in two straight lines in the aisle between their beds. Standing perfectly still had never been so hard. "Well," Mr. Crampton observed dourly, "that's one good thing about Christmas. All of you can remember how to behave on Christmas morning. Before we start downstairs, we need to take care of someone who didn't know how to behave last night. Rose, for sneaking out of bed and wandering in the halls after lights were out last night, you will be punished. This is a most serious offense, so you will receive all 3 punishments." The children gasped. No one had ever been given all 3 punishments at the same time before. Mr. Crampton paused for a moment to let his words sink in before he continued. "You will spend the day up here by yourself. You will scrub the floors of these rooms, and you will not get a Christmas orange. The rest of you go downstairs. Rose, go get your buckets and begin." The joy had been taken out of the morning for all of the children. They knew how much Rose had been looking forward to tasting her first orange. They had all told her how wonderful oranges were, and they had been waiting to see her face as she tasted one for the first time. The children filed slowly out of the room and down the stairs. They each took their orange from the tree and walked quietly into the cold hall to eat their breakfast. On one occasion, when the older gentleman had delivered oranges to Iron Gates, a small boy had been asked if the children had to eat the oranges for breakfast, or if they could save them and eat them later. The gentleman had laughed heartily and told the children that it was Christmas, and they could eat their oranges whenever they wanted. Mr. Crampton would have liked the order to have the children to eat them at breakfast, to have the mess over and done with, but he didn't dare go against what the old gentleman had said. While Emily sat looking at her orange and wishing Rose could have one, a wonderful idea came to her. Her heart started beating faster, her eyes sparkled, and her mouth curved up in a happy smile. Mr. Crampton was called to the front door, and as soon as the door closed behind him, Emily whispered to the child next to her. He smiled broadly and quickly whispered to the child next to him, and so it continued until every child had heard the message. One by one, the oranges disappeared from the table and were placed in pockets for safekeeping. When Mr. Crampton returned to the room, he noticed the oranges were missing from the table, but knew from the absence of peelings that the children hadn't eaten them. He decided it was because the children were too sad about Rose to eat the fruit this morning. He nodded in satisfaction, sure he had put his point across. The children did their chores as they did every day. Once the oranges had been passed out, Mr. Crampton treated Christmas like it was any other day. The children went about their duties quietly, but each pocket still showed a bump where an orange was hiding. At supper, the children ate their meals and then quietly slipped the oranges from their pockets, peeled them, and ate them too. Each evening they were sent to bed immediately after cleaning up from supper, and tonight was no exception. As the children dutifully climbed their stairs to bed, they kept their eyes down and their faces solemn. Mr. Crampton couldn't believe and couldn't be more pleased with how subdued the orphans were. The children entered the dark sleeping room quietly. Each pair of eyes was quickly drawn to Rose, who lay huddled on her bed, her face turned away from the door. Emily tiptoed over until she could see Rose's tear-stained cheeks and swollen eyes, now closed in sleep. She gently touched Rose's shoulder to waken her. Rose opened her red, swollen eyes, and then, as memories of the day returned, they again filled with tears. "Oh, Emily," she sobbed, This has been the worst day I have ever had. I didn't know it was so wrong to go look at the tree, and now I've missed it and the beautiful oranges." Emily hugged Rose as any real sister would and whispered, "Don't cry any more. We have a surprise for you." At Rose's first sobs, the children had gathered around her. Now from a pinafore pocket came a small white bundle. Emily took it and gently placed it in Rose's hands. Because no lights were allowed on in the sleeping rooms, Rose couldn't see what Emily handed her. She turned toward the window, where soft moonlight spilled in through bare, dusty panes. There in her hand was a handkerchief that had been taken from the clean laundry that afternoon. It was carefully folded over a round object. Rose hardly dared to hope that this might be what she thought it was. She looked up at the children gathered around her bed. In the faint light, she could see their excitement on their faces as they watched her every move. With shaking fingers, Rose peeled back the corners of the handkerchief, and there, in the palm of her hand, was an orange. Not an ordinary orange, but an orange that was lopsided and uneven. An orange made up of a segment from each child's orange. While the children had sat at the table quietly eating, each one had secretly passed a section of orange down to the girls at the ends of the tables. The girls had put the pieces in the clean handkerchiefs in their pockets. "Smell it," someone whispered excitedly. Rose raised the handkerchief to her face and drew in a deep, fragrant breath. She closed her eyes and held her breath for the longest time, and then released it through an ear-to-ear smile. All of the children smiled with her. "Taste it," someone else whispered. Rose slowly raised a segment to her lips. She opened her mouth and took a gentle nibble. Her eyes widened in surprise, and her mouth slightly puckered at the first tangy, sweet taste. The children were watching so closely that, as Rose parted her mouth, their lips parted too. Now, when they saw her pucker and then smile, they all quietly laughed and hugged each other. As if by magic, several more clean orange-filled handkerchiefs were pulled from pinafore pockets and opened up. The orange segments were quickly broken into smaller pieces, and one was given to every child. Each one took one last sniff of that fresh orange smell, one final lick of that tangy, delicious juice, before popping the last small bite into a waiting mouth. While the children enjoyed the last of the Christmas oranges, they all commented on how they had never had such sweet fruit before. This year's oranges were the best by far. What the children didn't realize until many years later was that the oranges were the best that day because they were sweetened with friendship, kindness, and love. In the years to come, many of those children at the orphanage had more money and possessions than they ever dreamed possible, but they never forgot the feeling that was in their heart that day as they shared a small slice of their Christmas orange. And that is Christmas Oranges, retold by Linda Beathers, illustrated by Ben Sowards. And I love that story. Isn't it sweet? It's been told in quite a few different renditions, but I love it the most. Sisterhood, friendship, love, camaraderie, kindness, all of those things, right? All of those things that represent Christmas to me. One of my clients last night said, "I don't know if your family celebrates Christmas, but if you do, Merry Christmas." And I said, "We do. A non-Christian family that celebrates Christmas. That's how I would consider my family. But that's who we are. And I'm really happy with that because to me, this time of year is about love. It's about compassion. It's about service. It's about kindness. It's about taking good care of each other. And it's about spreading light. And that's why I love that book, because it's all of those things. And isn't that what we're supposed to be about? To me, it is. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing here? I hope so. I think so. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I'm going to take a quick look here in the chat room. Oh, there's something that I forgot to point out in Luminous, and I can't get over it. We actually had a submission this week from Reader's Corner, and I'm going to run it for the next 2 weeks, actually. But it was by Renee Andrews, and she brought us a poem and a little piece of art. Flowers press dry between book pages, a lingering scent of past sighs. You'll find it on page 21. So Renee, I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged that and thanked you for that submission. And if ever you have something that you want to contribute to Luminous, I would love to air it. I think it's really fun to have a little Reader's Corner segment. So if you write something, you create something that you want to include, please do. I love it. Okay. I want to make sure that I got to a few readings here. Oh, Mary said, tears in my eyes. You know, Mary, I felt that way too. And I had a moment of thinking, can you read a book like this and not just cry the whole time? Because no one's going to be able to, hear it and understand it if you do. But I made it. It's okay. It would be just like me to do that, however, but nope, we made it. Okay. Sid says that was an amazing story. It truly conveys the real meaning of Christmas. I'd never heard it before. Thank you to you and your mom for sharing it. It's one of my favorites. It's so sweet. Also, that justice in me just, it makes me mad. But of course, it is what it is. And of course, the hope would be that those children who were in that orphanage, not that this was probably a real place, but there have been plenty of places just like it, that they, as they got older, fought for better rights for kids, fought for more foster, less orphanage, fought for children. That's the social justice piece that always comes up for me, even though I know it doesn't really have anything to do with the story. It's still, I can't have it. Okay, into the chat room we go. So let's see. Julia says, happy solstice, Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa to all. If you're doing readings, may I have a scan, a check-in, a message, whatever comes up, please. Anything on her right deltoid arm. Okay, Julia, let's take a peek. You do have an attachment. There's a physical issue here too, and I'll leave you and your doctor to deal with that. But I'm going to take a look at the attachment. You have something wrapped really tight around that arm. Kind of tight, like around here, like around your shoulder and around this arm. So I'm going to unwind that. Healing the energetic piece supports the physical healing. Likely doesn't create it, but supports it so that then you can just address the physical piece and we can get you feeling better. So I'm focusing there right now, Julia, and unwinding that. I mean, it almost looks like an energetic rope, really tying you down tight, almost tying that arm to your side. So I'm just pulling it off, sending it away. This is a thought form attachment, and it is basically came upon you from somebody who's jealous of you and wanted to, it's not like these things are done on purpose. It's not like somebody, this was their exact intention, but someone who would like to, tie your arms, shut you down. That's where it came from. So I'm just clearing it for you now. I'm going to build that space up. All right, and now I'm going to call in the ethereal properties of sterling silver sterling silver ribbons. I'm going to start at the top of your shoulder, and I'm going to run those all the way down that arm and pull them out through your hand. So we'll do that 3 times to help with the energy flow all the way through that arm. I can see, Julia, that it's created a piece of chronic pain for you that makes it hard to sleep, makes it hard to get comfortable, and it's creating big worry in you about what this is. And so I do want to encourage you to continue to work with your doctors to get the physical piece, dealt with and under control, because the chronic pain is chipping away at your psyche, and that's not cool either. So you keep asking more questions until you get it dealt with. Okay, so that piece is done. So that's a good little bit of energetic healing for you so that you can work on the physical piece and get feeling better. Jane said that I was watching the live video, but oh my, thank you for reading that story. Bawling my eyes out, and yes, I'm sure many adults made orphans' kids' lives hell. I know. That's the worst part, huh, Jane? She said that was really sweet. Well, thank you. Okay, back to the chat. Okay, Laura said, have to catch you on the replay, but I love you and wish you the most loving of holidays and happiest of 2020. Thank you, my dear friend. The same to you. Raven shared a meme, a photo, a picture, and said, Merry Witchmas to you too, my friend. You probably heard me talk about this, but I have joined the Strange Phenomena and Mystery Show that comes on every other Friday. So I debuted with them last Friday. It was a ton of fun. So I'm now an official sister in strangeness, and I'm so excited about it. So Raven, that's awesome. But also on the topic of Raven, she is bringing us a holiday special today. So right after this show is Robert Underwood, and then after Robert, Raven is popping in for an hour to bring us a special down the rabbit hole, and she's talking about angels and what are they? And it looks awesome. I have my opinions, Raven. I'm sure you do too. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. It sounds amazing. So make sure that you guys hang out for that one as well, if you can. If not, catch her on the replay. It's going to be great. All right. Terry said, if there's time, I'd love a message from a loved one on the other side. Terry, I would love to convey a message from a loved one on the other side. There's a little line. I've got some parents and grandparents here, but your husband he's going to win the day. He has such a big personality. He's actually very sweet. But no, basically everyone indicated that he's the one that gets to come forward. He patted your hand. He says, love you, babe. I know it's been a long year and you've been a trooper. I hate seeing you sick and then hurt. And yet you just keep on going. I should have known that would be the way you are. I mean, I did. You've always been, he said, you've always been a tough broad. That's funny. He said he's just doing his best to keep wrapping his love around you. He wants to throw a lot of love to family members who have been there to really support you and be there for you. Kylie particularly, but others as well that have just really wrapped their love around you and been there for you. He said the worst thought for him is the thought of you being lonely, and he doesn't want that. He also wants you to know that he knows that you are moving on with life in lots of ways, and that he supports all of that. So big bear hugs from him and a lot of love. Yeah. Oh, Terry. What a sweetheart. Okay. All right. Kevin says, I went to Rockefeller Center and Saks Fifth Avenue to revisit the Grand Tree and Lights display. Wow. Put on a great big smile on my face. This Kevin is staying home alone for Christmas. A little sad, but grateful nonetheless. Well, Kevin, all of our love to you, and I hope that you just do some things that you like to do, you know, to just seize that joy. Mary said, in whatever way it is for you, right? Like, I think that we get a little too caught up in making Christmas have to be the thing it's supposed to be. And I don't actually like that. I think we have to let things be what they are in a sense. I don't like the idea that we have to force everything to be a Hallmark card. Sometimes, we fall into that trap. But things can be different. They don't have to be exactly the way the media or the world tells us they have to be, right? Okay. Mary said, sorry, Mary, I'm losing track of my feed. She said, I would love an energy clearing on my left leg and hip. Let's take a look at that, Mary. Yeah. Okay. It's obviously there's a physical thing that you're working on, those hip alignment issues, and then also the way that's affecting your low back. So, but I know you're working on that. So I'm just going to do a good healing and clearing. Here's why, Mary. I feel like this is affecting your root chakra and your ability to stay fully grounded. And so I'm going to repair that because I don't want this issue, this bit of inflammation and pain here to affect your root chakra so much that you're not able to ground and that your root's not able to do its entire job. So I'm going to repair that bit so that you can stay grounded and centered and present. You too have had a hell of a 2019 and have plenty to celebrate here this Christmas season. I would love to see you be able to do that without a bunch of pain. Okay. So just fixing the ground here first, fixing your root. So what I want to do is be able to pull energy all the way through that without feeling it catch or stop anywhere. So I'm going to move through your left foot, pull energy up through your leg. See, it stops just above the knee. All right, so I'm going to really work it through there, all the way through the hip. Okay, that's getting better. We're just going to run that a couple more times to make sure it's running the way I want it to. Okay, way better. All right, one more trip around here. So I'm just pulling that energy from your foot clear to the top of your head and sending it back down the other side. I just want it to be moving at the clip that it should be so that you are feeling, well, the way you should, Because if the root chakra is out, then none of the other chakras are being fed the way they should be. And so that's a problem, right? So that's why, it could be a big issue long term. We don't want it to be that. All right, so that's good. That actually released something between your shoulder blades too. So you're kind of a little twisted, I think, or a little funny. So, but I know you are working on that with your doctor. So I'm good on that. So let's just balance your crown because that would be the last piece here. When the root is moving slow and weird like this, your crown's getting too big. And for you, Mary, that is misery because that's a bunch of overthinking and you tend to do a little of that anyway. And so more of it is just, it's not where you want to live, right? All right. So pulling your crown down to size and balancing it. Good. All right. Let's just clear your aura too while we're at it, just for the heck of it. Good. And mostly your aura just picks up some energetic debris, some psychic sludge. All right. That's done. So I'm going to just put some bright light around you, just a big, thick pink blanket of light, Mary, to just hold you here in your happy place through the holidays so that you can celebrate with your family. Okay, that is done. All righty, good. That's much better. Okay. Let's see, just taking one last peek in the chat room. Okay, and I'm looking at the clock, realizing we are done. So, lots of things. First of all, thank you so much for joining me. I do hope that you have a wonderful holiday and a great rest of your week. I want to let you know that you can find me on Sunday mornings on my YouTube channel, which is Domestic Mystic, live streaming, and here on my Facebook page, my fan page at Katie Weaver Domestic Mystic. I do a 20-minute unchurch broadcast on Sunday mornings. I would love to see you there, or you can catch the replay anytime. It is not church, it's unchurched, church for the rest of us, just a little bit extra motivation and inspiration. So that is happening every Sunday these days. And of course, you'll always find me on Monday mornings with 1-2 News, and Tuesdays right here for the Katie Weaver Show. And as always, you can learn more about me over at katie-weaver.com. And I will be here at 1-2 Listen for the whole rest of the week. So if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. If you have a need for me and I'm not signed in, just make a callback request. If I'm in a place where I can log in and take your call, I will. If I'm not, I'll drop you a note and we'll work out a time. But if you need me, just let me know. Don't suffer in silence. I consider you guys all to be an extended part of my family. So as I go through holiday celebrations, you're always a part of that as well. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need something. Please stay tuned for Robert Underwood, followed by Raven's special edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. You've been listening to The Katie Weaver Show here on 1-2 Radio, where we're changing the way you love with the world.